Welcome to the audio recording studio. It's really quiet in here, something that's difficult to achieve elsewhere, and that helps us make good recordings. There's a lot of mystique around what goes on in a room like this, and I want to break that down for you. I believe anybody can make a good, competent recording in this room. Today's about showing you how. How do you get in here? Watching all this video, passing a quiz about it, and then filling out the studio request form. When you fill in the form, please list your first, second, and third choices of dates and times. By turning in the studio request form, you agree to be responsible for the space and its equipment, and to follow safety rules set forth in this video and posted in the studio. The production office reviews requests for studio time during business hours during the week. We ask that you list your first, second, and third choices of times, and we'll confirm one of those times with you by Carlton email or work with you to find another time. And then we set the one card permissions to open the door, so your one card opens the door exactly during the time of your studio booking. We won't book studio reservations less than an hour apart. That's not an hour of extra time for the outgoing person. That's an hour for the room to rest. So please, it's important to leave on time. COVID safety. Wear a mask. Stay 6 feet apart. These things are all important to practice and keep practicing down here in the audio recording studio. These are very close quarters. So how do those things apply down here? For the rest of this term, I've set up 2 studio mics on the soundstage, one on each dot. Please leave them right there. I hope you get the chance to learn what a versatile setup this is. The cables should run smoothly along the floor to the wall and from there to the patch panel, this metal plate that has lots of plugs in it that leads to the control room. Notice how easily you could swing one mic over to the practice amp and the other one over to the piano without even moving where the mic stand is on the floor. Can there be 2 people on the soundstage? Yes, but they both have to be wearing masks the whole time. That might limit them to making sound effects or playing non-wind instruments. The thinking here is really that there's one person on the soundstage at a time with mask on. You may, if you're on the soundstage alone, if you choose, lower your mask for a take. Please raise your mask completely right away when your take is done. For whatever it's worth, here's what I sound like with a mask on, and there's what I sound like with the mask off again. Only one person can be in the control room at a time. If you're out here on the soundstage and you want to hear back something that you just recorded, there's a way for the person in the control room to play it back for you on speakers out here in the soundstage, so you never have to go in the control room. The control room's way too small for any more than one person to be in at a time. If you're the person in the control room working with somebody out here on the soundstage, please keep wearing a mask the entire time. But if you have the soundstage and the control room to yourself, then if you choose, you may go without a mask while you're in here as though it were a kind of private office temporarily. If anyone's speaking, singing, or playing a wind instrument, please clamp a pop filter about 6 inches in front of the microphone. Most people speaking sound pretty good about 6 inches past that, so I'm about a foot from the microphone right now. We'll talk later about how that pop filter gets cleaned. There's no way to clean a microphone without running the risk of getting liquid in it, so please don't touch the microphones. There is a way to adjust a mic on a stand without touching the mic. A few more notes about safety that are true all the time. If something seems unsafe or unwise, don't do it. Pause what you're doing. The great thing about this medium is there's more than one way to convey the effect that you're after. So, no shot or piece of audio is worth risking harm in order to achieve it. Things overhead. There are lights overhead in this studio. We ask that you not adjust them. Same thing in the larger studios. Please make sure there's a complete path from the door of the studio to the place where you want someone to stand so they don't have to walk over anything. You're welcome to bring water onto the soundstage as long as it's in a container that closes completely. That's important. People's voices get dry after they've been speaking or singing for a while, but please, no other food or drink anywhere on the soundstage or in the control room, please. It's a good idea not to work alone. This is a sound-isolated space in a relatively isolated part of the building. If you needed to holler for help, I'm not sure anyone outside would hear you. Do bring a buddy. That's a good idea. Most of this work is collaborative by nature in any event. And the campsite rule. Please leave this place a little better than you found it for other Carls. Clean up after yourself. Bring out everything you brought in. In COVID times here in the studio, we're going to say, leave these mics set up the way they are. You're responsible for the studio and its equipment and your safety while you're here. So how does this work? When a mic is plugged into a cable and the cable into the patch panel on the soundstage, wires in the wall connect to the patch panel in the control room. Then some more cables connect to the audio interface, which turns the sound from analog to digital and offers it to the computer for you to record in Audition and hear in the speakers in the control room. That is a complete signal path. If there's troubleshooting to be done, it's usually along the signal path. Is everything plugged in correctly? How do we set up a session? Check the mic cables are plugged in. Turn on the audio interface. Turn on the computer. Turn on phantom power for channels 1 through 4, and last, turn on the control room speakers. The switch is in the back. Sign into the computer with your Carlton username and password. Launch Adobe Audition and sign in. Go to the Preferences menu in Adobe Audition and choose Audio Hardware. In the window that opens, set Default Input, Default Output, and Master Clock all as our audio interface. Set sample rate to 48,000 Hz and set I/O buffer to the lowest setting it will allow. Click on the File menu and choose File, New Multitrack Session. In the window that opens, give your session a name. Browse to the scratch disk. Choose a sample rate of 48,000 Hz and a bit depth of 24 bits, and choose Stereo, then click OK. Click on the Multitrack menu and choose Tracks, delete empty tracks. Now click Multitrack, Tracks, Add Mono Audio Track. Look at the track you just made. Click on the rectangular box and rename the track. Do these two steps again if you're using the second mic. Click on the box next to the arrow that points toward the right and choose Mono Input 1 on the audio interface. You just connected Channel 1 on the audio interface with your track in Audition. If you're using a second mic, repeat that process. On your track in Audition, click the rectangular boxes labeled R and I. R arms the track to record, and I lets you hear what you're recording. Setting record levels. Look on the front of the audio interface for the knob labeled Mic 1. If you're recording the sound of someone speaking, go ahead and turn it up to 8, and ask the person out here on the soundstage to start speaking. Watch the meters in Audition. The goal is to almost fill the track with volume, but leave a margin for error we call headroom. What does that mean? So we have a scale from -infinity to 0 to work with. -infinity is quiet, and 0 means this track is as full of audio as it can be and still represent that audio accurately. If the audio gets even a little bit louder, it'll distort, and there's no way to fix that distortion after the fact. So we want to set our levels so they peak at about -12 dB and no more. So you have two variables to do that. One is the volume knob that you're manipulating now, Mic 1 volume. The other is, where is the person's voice relative to the mic? Do I sound any different back here? Way over here? Do I sound different here? Mic placement matters. It's the second variable that you have to change in order to set good levels. Repeat all this, looking for the best level that you can set, and give yourself some patience. It can feel like this takes a long time, like you wish your session would just get started already, but it's a good idea to get this right. It is possible to set good levels in this room, and when you do, this room really helps you out. So you've set a record level. Now, let's think about playback level. Who can hear what you're recording or playing back? There's only 3 more knobs on the audio interface, and they all send audio. one to each place. Speakers in the control room, headphones on the soundstage, and speakers on the soundstage. I have just a couple points about each of these. So first of all, for yourself in the control room, find a comfortable level for the control room speakers and try and leave it that way for the rest of your session. 2, if someone wants to hear themselves on headphones out here on the soundstage, then turn up the knob labeled headphone amp on the soundstage. They'll also need to plug in to the headphone amp, and they'll need to turn the headphone amp on, turn the master level up to about half, and turn the channel they're plugged into up to about half in order to hear what you're sending them. That headphone level is something they can adjust to their own taste out here on the soundstage, and that's very convenient. The last knob on the audio interface is for speakers on the soundstage. This is really useful for social distancing, to be able to play back something for the person out here on the soundstage without them ever having to join you in the control room. Remember, occupancy in the control room is one person. So that's useful, but be sure if you turn that up to play something back for somebody out here, turn it back down before you start recording again. If this mic is sending signal into the control room and back out through the speakers on the soundstage, that will create a feedback loop. It's that horrible howling sound we've all heard, so please don't do that. When you've got good record levels set and it's time to start recording, press the record button. Make sure Audition is recording. Count the person down like this, 3, 2, 1, and point at them through the window of the booth to out here on the soundstage, and they'll know that it's time to start rolling. If you think someone's done, keep recording for a little while longer just to make sure you're not accidentally cutting them off. And at some point in your session, always record room tone. With the mic set just the way it is, at the record level that you've been using all day long, record 60 seconds of what we think of as silence. It's really room tone. This is really useful for editing. Let's say it's the end of your recording session. Back up your files to 2 places. The cloud and a physical storage device is a good idea. How? Well, when you were setting up your session and you gave it a name and browsed to Scratch Disk, Audition automatically created a folder named after your session on Scratch Disk, and it's been writing all the files to that folder during your whole session. So all you have to do is find that folder and drag it into the cloud and onto your physical storage device. It's that simple. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but if you look at your files, they should all be named according to whatever your tracks are named. So if you renamed your tracks, that's fantastic. You've got an organizational method there. Things should make sense. If you didn't rename your tracks, then they're all named track 1_001, track 1_002, and it's less of a help organizationally. It's more work to organize your files. A couple more points about Scratch Disk. If you're working on a project that you don't want anybody else to hear, please delete your files after you've confirmed that they were written to the cloud and your physical storage device. Also, Scratch Disk is not storage. If your files happen to be here when you come back the next time, that's great, but it's not storage. What if you need to make more space on Scratch Disk? If you delete the oldest files first, you will be following a tradition that we've established for years now in the audio recording studio. If Scratch Disk is getting full and you need to make some space, please delete the oldest files first. Shut things down in the booth. Turn off the speakers first. Close Audition. Log out of the computer. Turn phantom power off and turn off the audio interface. Reset on the soundstage. If you've moved anything, this is the time to please move it back. Please don't tear down mics and stands. Please leave mics connected to their cables and plugged into the patch panel. The less everyone has to touch, the better, and the less setup for the next person. If you swung a mic stand around to the piano or the practice amp, please swing it back and leave each mic adjusted for standing height. This is how most people are likely to use the studio. Cleaning. Please don't try to clean a mic. It's far too easy for liquid to get inside. Take the pop filter off and hold it away from mics and electronics and spray the pop filter directly with the bottle of college-supplied cleaner and put it in the bucket. The pop filter is the only thing it's okay to spray directly. Next, take a wipe and spray it with the bottle of college-provided cleaner, and wipe down what you touched, including mic stand knobs, keyboard and mouse, audio interface knobs, doorknobs, piano keys. Don't wipe it dry. Let the cleaner stand on the object surface and just evaporate slowly. Take one last look around and make sure you didn't forget anything. That's a lot of detail, I know, but please do use this video as a resource during your sessions, and I hope you get a chance to use this room.